Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, a report from Capitol Hill on incoming President Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. Get analysis from our bureau chief about his confirmation hearing. Plus, we head to the Surface Navy Association's annual gathering in Washington, D.C. Get a look at what was on display at this year's event, including an emerging vessel called the Ghost. Also, more from a series on how Marines become drill instructors. Go behind the scenes at the school where troops learn to become the intimidating leaders that epitomize the Corps. We've got those stories and more on tap this week, in the latest in news and analysis, from the Pentagon to the platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Pat Hansen. Each year, the Surface Navy Association hosts its annual symposium just down the street from the Pentagon. This year featured a full agenda of speakers and panels, along with some of the defense industry's latest and greatest on display in the exhibition halls. We traveled to the show to get a look at what was on display for 2025, and got a peek at some of what the defense industry had to offer. First up, a look at the Ghost, a unique future offering from General Dynamics with an eye-catching design.
So my name is Matt McGonigal. I am a retired U.S. Navy captain. Prior, I commanded DDGs as well as I was a Commodore for the Littoral Combat Ship Squadron 1 out of San Diego. I am the lead right now with regards to Ghost. It is our optionally small USV unmanned surface vessel. Originally, it was designed, the C-frame, by Juliet Marine in a 2014-2015 timeframe. It was a conventionally manned vessel. All right, it was designed for covert insertion and extraction of special forces. As time went on, all right, the C-frame itself was more in tune with what USV was looking for. And why was the C-frame so important is because of the unique design, which is a swath design, a single waterplane twin hull. It has the ability to maintain speeds of 30 plus knots in sea states of 4 to 5. What happens is with an increase in speed demand, all right, the struts actually go deeper into the water, allowing for greater stability of the craft. The body of the craft never actually touches the water, so therefore it can maintain stability in a higher sea speed. So the draft can be from anywhere from 4 feet of water to 12 feet of water. So it makes it ideal to be able to bring this craft into the littoral areas or areas that are closer to land where autonomous vehicles are needed. All right, and the other aspect is that it's a hybrid in its electrical drive. For anything of 5 knots or less, it works off a battery. Anything above 5 knots, it works off its main propulsion gas turbine engines. The unique thing about Ghost itself is it was designed to actually fit within every amphibious well deck within U.S. Navy inventory. So in actuality, in the production model, these would be able to flip up and be removed, all right, to travel either in a C-130 into theater, or you could actually deploy them in the well deck of any amphib coming out of CONUS. If we're in the middle of a contested area, Ghost is ideal in that regard. Because of its mission bay, it can carry the needed resupply, all right, for the Marines that are within that first line of fight or within that WES, all right, as well as it can bring things out of that area too, to include emergency medevac. We mentioned 3 different areas in particular: the contestant logistics. We talk about the missile and the ability to do communications long range, but we also have the ability to bring it to ASW. What is unique, again, is that at speeds 5 knots or less, it works off of batteries. So it has a loiter time of 40 days on station. So that's the ability for an unmanned craft to maintain station for 40 plus days. All right, and that's because of the uniqueness of the battery pack and the fact that it can be, the battery pack can be charged both through a separate small generator that is on board, as well as there's a connection between the main propulsion gas turbine engine and the battery pack, so that when it's operating off the turbine engines, all right, it's recharging the batteries. So Ghost is fully operational. We're running it through the tests up in Portland, Maine, right now off the coast. And we are preparing for a demonstration for the fleet in Little Creek in the late March, early April timeframe. When does this happen?
Next up at Surface Navy. During day one of the event, Navy leaders took the time to look forward at what's coming up for the force. Speakers included the Navy's Director of Surface Warfare, Rear Admiral William Daly, who talked about the hybrid nature of the future Navy and the need for smaller, lighter, unmanned vessels over large, exquisite systems.
The optionally crewed future needs to arrive sooner. This future is baked into distributed maritime operations and has been noted in detail on this stage before. N96's focus now is to move faster and to streamline the family of uncrewed surface craft. The change from what you've heard previously is that we are not pursuing large, medium, and small mix. More directly, the hybrid fleet need not include large and/or exquisite uncrewed platforms. We have got to get real here. Instead of different large and medium designs, we need one craft that is affordable, non-exquisite, and can come off multiple production lines in an identical manner and go towards one of two payloads, either the Envision magazine payload of the large USV or the ISR-related payload of the medium USV. Commonality, configuration control, and good enough for the mission. We can build this craft in numbers at many shipyards. The designs already exist, and we must not over-spec this. We've also had sufficient funding and experimentation to date to know what we need. We are able to responsibly take that investment provided us by the Congress and the learning, which covered both the large and medium USVs, and merge it into the correct USV today. Size-wise, these are at the former higher end range of medium USV, and they should hold up to 4 of the larger 40-foot payload containers. Many of the payloads are ready and tested. CONOPs are coalescing. Let's move faster. This is efficient, this is effective, this is scalable, this is operating differently, and above all, this is lethal. On the low end of USV, the small USV is moving out. The existing vision still holds. We're buying and testing single, specific mission package small USVs, and we will keep doing that. Production at scale and simple payload flexibility for the fleet commanders are at the root of the small USV. The fourth priority is really part of improving the force, but I pull it out because in our current state, it needs attention. Decision and management advantage is all about organizing, thinking, operating, and deciding in a manner that benefits from digital technologies that either exist today or are at the edge. Our ability to machine learn in peacetime will find the margin of victory in wartime. N96 has traditionally not been organized to think like this. We now have a digital thinking and integration cell, and they're advising me on what use cases N96 should pursue rapidly. They range from administrative improvements to VHF translators to what I care about most, which is enhancing our kill chain, enhancing or accelerating the kill chain. Many of you are thinking or working this, and we're particularly interested in your kill chain improvements.
When we come back, highlights and analysis from the confirmation hearing for President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Stay tuned. Welcome back. When President-elect Donald Trump chose Pete Hegseth as his nominee to be the next Secretary of Defense, reactions were mixed across the military and political worlds. Hegseth is a Fox News personality with a number of hardline statements about military policies on the record, and media reporting about his past centered around accusations of sexual assault and excessive drinking. Hegseth does have experience in the military. As a National Guard soldier, he served tours in Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and earned a combat infantryman's badge and 2 Bronze Stars. He still serves in the Minnesota Army National Guard's Individual Ready Reserve. Hegseth survived an initial round of scrutiny and opposition to make it to a Senate confirmation hearing on January 14th, where he sat in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee for questioning. Military Times' Leo Shane was covering the hearing and had this report.
Controversial Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth appeared before the Senate Armed Services Committee this week for his long-awaited confirmation hearing. And he faced tough questioning from Democratic senators over his views on women in the military, his comments on military rules and norms, and numerous allegations about past misbehavior. The contentious hearing was the final test for Hegseth, a National Guard veteran and a Fox News commentator who soon could be leading the Pentagon's $850 billion budget, as well as 2 million troops and 800,000 civilian defense workers. Hegseth was an unconventional pick from the start by President-elect Trump. He doesn't have any major Pentagon leadership experience, and he doesn't have a background in leading any large organizations, anything the size of the Pentagon. But at his confirmation hearing, Hegseth said his lack of traditional experience will allow him to help shake up the Pentagon and refocus the military on core missions like lethality and warfighting.
When President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense. He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused on lethality, meritocracy, warfighting, accountability, and readiness. To bring back warfighting, if confirmed, I'm going to work with President Trump and this committee to, 1, restore the warrior ethos to the Pentagon and throughout our fighting force. In doing so, we will reestablish trust in our military, addressing the recruiting crisis, the retention crisis, and readiness crisis in our ranks.
Now, Democrats on the committee have already called Hegseth woefully unqualified for this cabinet post. They pointed to his past inflammatory comments claiming women should not hold combat jobs and allegations of misbehavior and mismanagement at previous posts leading veterans nonprofits.
Why should women in our military, if you were the Secretary of Defense, believe that they would have a fair shot and an equal opportunity to rise through the ranks? If on the one hand, you say that women are not competent, they make our military less effective, and on the other hand, you say, oh no, now that I've been nominated to be the Secretary of Defense, I've changed my view on women in the military. What do you have to say to the almost 400,000 women who are serving today about your position on whether they should be capable to rise through the highest ranks of our military?
Senator, I would say I would be honored to have the opportunity to serve alongside you, shoulder to shoulder, men and women, black, white, all backgrounds, with a shared purpose. Our differences are not what define us. Our unity and our shared purpose is what define us, and you will be treated fairly and with dignity, honor, and respect, just like every man and woman in uniform, just like the men and women that I've worked with in my veterans organizations, to include when I was a headquarters and headquarters company commander in the Minnesota National Guard.
Well, I appreciate your 11th hour conversion.
Hegseth has flatly denied those allegations, and he sparred frequently with Democratic lawmakers during the hearing. He said the military has become too focused on irrelevant activities like diversity and climate change, and he promised to follow through on Trump's plans to boost military funding and increase strength.
First and foremost, we will defend our homeland, our borders, and our skies. Second, we will work with our partners and allies to deter aggression in the Indo-Pacific from the Communist Chinese. And finally, we will responsibly end wars to ensure that we prioritize our resources to reorient to larger threats. We can no longer count on reputational deterrence. We need real deterrence. The Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals, will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional. Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors. Our standards will be high, and they will be equal, not equitable. That's a very different word. I've led troops in combat. I've been on patrol for days. I've pulled a trigger downrange, heard bullets whiz by, flex-cuffed insurgents, called in close air support, led medevacs, dodged IEDs, pulled out dead bodies, and knelt before a battlefield cross. This is not academic for me. This is my life. I led then, and I will lead now.
Democrats don't have enough votes on their own to block Hegseth's nomination, thanks to Republicans taking control of the Senate majority in the last election. Republicans have generally supported the nomination, but this week's confirmation hearing was seen as a key moment to calm any fears about Hegseth's temperament or his policies. During the hearing, Hegseth pledged to fix the Pentagon's business practices and restore the military's ability to confront adversaries, which he claimed has weakened in recent years. Trump's inauguration is set for January 20th. Hegseth's unlikely to be confirmed before that date, but he could end up in place shortly afterwards if Republicans have the votes in the Senate to get him confirmed. For Military Times, I'm Leo Shane.
You can check out all of Leo's coverage of that and other hearings at militarytimes.com. When we come back, scams that target service members and their family members, and how to avoid them. That and more when we return. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. It should be no shock that members of the military are targets, but not always just by enemy weapons. Scammers are out there too. On this episode of Money Minute, Jeanette Mack from Navy Federal Credit Union outlines ways to avoid scams targeting service members and their families.
Every day, active duty service members, veterans, and their families dedicate their lives to protect our freedom. It's unfortunate that service members are also the most targeted for financial scams. The frequent moves, excessive traveling, and time away from home attracts fraudsters. So much so that in recent years, military families have reported losing millions to fraud. The best protection is knowing what to look for, like impersonation scams. Scammers posing as military officials or government reps claiming you owe money or they need to verify personal info. Never share sensitive information over the phone unless you made the call to your bank or credit union, and never click links in unsolicited texts and emails. Investment scams are high on the list as well. You just have to verify who and what you're getting yourself into. Any deal or stock that seems too good to be true probably is. Overall, the best defense is a good offense. Keep up with the latest scams, report suspicious activity to the FTC or military resources, and protect yourself and your family. Together, you can stand strong against scammers.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more coverage of military and defense topics, surf on the back of your robotic pack mule and head towards militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more headlines. And to be the smartest non-com in the brigade, sign up for our early bird brief, compiled each morning to bring you the most recent headlines. Lastly, if social media is where you collect open source intelligence, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And just like most junior troops, we're on TikTok, so go find us there as well. When we return, a look inside the school where Marines who once got screamed at by drill instructors learn to do the screaming themselves. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Pat Hansen. Marine drill instructors are a unique breed, a pivotal part of every new grunt's experience in the Corps. They intimidate, teach, and instill discipline in all of America's future Marine fighters. And they scream. Good Lord, do they scream. But just how do everyday Marines become the imposing arbiters of right and tight regulations for newcomers? A series created by the Corps gives you a look and takes you inside Marine drill instructor school. Check it out.
Get out of being internalized.
Sergeant Thompson, hold on, it's been a while. Hold on. Let me get my voice back first. Sergeant DeAndre Thompson, 0911, drill instructor.
My name is Sergeant Lennon, first name Gustavo, and 0911, a drill instructor here on Paris Island.
Don't hold it on and be successful as a team. Do we understand that?
Yes, sir!
Nothing else, always give 100% of yourself at all times. Because I see we have a big class, and hopefully all you make,
Those recruits see you 24/7, and you're the first eye of a Marine that they get to see besides the recruiter of, this is what I need to be like.
So I volunteered because that's the type of person I am. I'm a go-getter. I'll go and get it. I'll never settle for less. I'll never be stagnant at where I'm at. I'll never be comfortable where I'm at. I always want to progress, and the more I progress, I feel like the more of an asset I would be to the organization.
I have a college degree, and I decided not to commission because I wanted to be a drill instructor. So one of those things was the academic side of the teachbacks. And every time you hear about a drill instructor, you hear teachbacks, teachbacks, teachbacks. It's finally that time to do them. You're trying to scream at the top of your lungs so you can break your voice to build your voice up.
Like I told my roommate when I first got here, I kind of struggled with accepting the fact that I was here and I was going through it because I was constantly getting yelled at. Everybody's constantly getting yelled at. Just adjusting to the environment that we're in, though, it was a little bit difficult at first, but I would do it all, absolutely, I would do it all over again because it's part of the process, and everything that's done here is done for a reason.
Bring you back to the basics of what you should have been taught when you were a recruit. Things you should have been holding yourself accountable for as a Marine, as a staff NCO, and an NCO.
We want them to be able to think their way through something. We want them to exercise initiative. We want them to be able to be leaders. And those aren't the things we're teaching to a first phase recruit. As a sergeant, I want you to be able to figure out how are you going to execute the training schedule? How are you going to train 80 young men over the next 70 training days? That's a different mission than the recruit learning. The recruit is learning how to become a Marine. The student in DI school is learning how to be a better version of themselves as a leader.
I think one of the best advice that previous drill instructors have given me and going through DI school was never change yourself to become somebody you're not. So at the same time, I'm finding my way, but I'm not changing who I am as a person.
Going through DI school, prepare your voice, because it's funny to say now, because I didn't realize it while I was in school that, so the louder that you are, the better that the recruits are able to hear you and know what to do. Drill Instructor Sergeant Thompson was one of the people that I looked up to, and they remember me. So when I'm gone from this earth, that my legacy is still able to live on, but also the Marine Corps legacy as well.
Well, that's all we have time for in this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.